All right, let's get straight into it. The Cowboys get the W against the Giants. And yeah, it felt messy, chaotic, and at times way too close for comfort. But a win's a win, and that's what we take. First thing, Brian Schottenheimer walks away with his first NFL head coaching victory. That's a headline that looks good on paper and matters in the locker room. But the way the game played out makes you wonder how much we should really celebrate. There were penalties everywhere to 12 for over 100 yards and a few moments where this team looked like it was playing down to the opponent. Still, you can't understate what Brandon Aubrey did. That guy answered every single time the Cowboys needed points. Long attempts, pressure moments, clutch boots, he drilled them. If you ask me, he's a prime candidate for the game ball tonight. I want to hear your take. Who gets the game ball, Aubrey or Schottenheimer? Vote down in the comments and make it loud. Now let's talk structure. The offense had flashes. Dak made plays when it counted, but a lot of the late game stress came from sloppy penalties and defensive lapses. The defense gave up chunk plays at bad times, whether it was poor tackling angles, busted coverage, or just mental errors. Those plays nearly cost us. You saw the huge game-changing plays the Giants were able to put together in a matter of seconds. That's the part that keeps me up. We can't trade wins for luck every week. Discipline has to be cleaned up. And the staff knows it, but I want your number. On a scale from 1 to 10, how worried are you about the penalty problem? Drop a number in the comments right now. One more angle before we move on. Special teams and situational football won us the game. Aubrey's leg is the reason we were still in it late. The coaching staff handing Schottenheimer a symbolic game ball was a nice moment. But I'm with a lot of you. Special teams and a kicker who performs under pressure deserve massive credit. That kind of reliability changes how a close game ends. If you're watching and you want more special teams breakdowns, type kicker in the comments and I'll make that a video. Finally, quick reminder. If you like honest, straight-to-the-point Cowboys analysis and you want more quick reaction content like this, hit subscribe and help us push toward 16,000 subscribers. It's the best way to keep these updates coming. All right, I'm about to dive into the injury stuff next. Cavante Turpin's neck situation and what it means for the receiver room. If you want me to dig into roster moves and who should step up, say depth in the chat. Now let's talk about the scare that had every Cowboys fan holding their breath. Cavante Turpin going down with that neck injury. You saw it on the return. A little helmet-to-helmet contact, the awkward bend, and suddenly he's on the ground. He left the game, and when you see a guy with a brace or walking off stiff, it hits you in the gut. The good news, updates after. The game said his x-rays came back clean. No fractures, no structural damage. Right now it's stiffness, soreness, and that's something you'd much rather hear than anything long-term. Teammates were even joking with him in the locker room about the brace, which shows they expect him to be okay. But still, until he's back on the field, you worry. The bigger picture is what his absence means for the wide receiver depth. Remember, this group already had questions behind CeeDee Lamb. You brought in George Pickens. And while that adds a dynamic option, it doesn't solve everything. If Turpin can't go next game, then suddenly you're staring at Jalen Tolbert and Ryan Flanoy as the guys who need to step up. Be honest with me, how much confidence do you have in that setup? Most fans aren't exactly thrilled with Tolbert, and Flanoy is still trying to prove himself at this level. That's a steep drop-off, and it matters because Turpin brings that spark. He's not just a depth receiver, he's a field position weapon, a guy who can flip momentum with one return. You lose him, and the offense feels it too. I want your take on this one. Do you think Turpin plays next week against the Bears? Drop a Y for yes or N for no down in the comments right now. And if he does miss time, who should step up as the third receiver? Tolbert, Flanoy? Or do you think the Cowboys should look outside the roster for another option? Leave me your pick below, because this conversation matters. Dallas cannot afford to be thin at that spot going forward. And one last thing, this is why you subscribe. You get injury updates like this pushed right to you without waiting for the national outlets to catch on. We're chasing 16,000 subscribers, and every click gets us closer to being the #1 Cowboys fan community here on YouTube. We've talked about the receivers, but now we have to get into what might be the most concerning storyline of all, the center position. Cooper Bibby left the game with that right ankle injury, and let's be real, it didn't look good when he was helped off. He wasn't just limping, he had his arms over to teammates, and that's the kind of visual you never want to see from the guy anchoring your offensive line. No official word yet on how bad it is, but the fact he couldn't return and needed help leaving the field is a red flag. We'll be waiting on MRI results, but this could become a very big deal fast. So let's talk about the guy who stepped in, Brock Hoffman. He came in cold during overtime, and immediately we saw some of the growing pains. That mishandled snap with Dak Prescott could have been catastrophic if the Giants had pounced on it. That's the risk you run when a backup with limited live reps suddenly gets thrown into a pressure moment. Hoffman has toughness, grit, and a little bit of that chip on his shoulder mentality. But is he the kind of player you want, making protection calls and handling the line of scrimmage for Dak in a tight game? I'm not so sure. Remember, last year most of his snaps came at right guard, not at center. Playing the pivot isn't just about blocking. It's about communication, timing, leadership, and snapping cleanly every single play. That's why this could be the sneaky storyline that shifts everything about this Cowboys offense. Think about it. The center is the brain of the offensive line. He's setting protections, adjusting to blitz looks, and keeping everyone aligned. If BB is out for multiple weeks, then Hoffman has to step up in that role, and history tells us he hasn't been able to beat out guys for the starting job in the past. That's why this is so concerning. So let's make this interactive. What's your confidence level in Brock Hoffman holding down the middle of the offensive line? Scale it from 1 to 10 in the comments right now. Personally, I'm not very high on that scale, but I want to know where you stand. And listen, if you want me to put together a full video breaking down the Cowboys' offensive line depth, type O-line in the comments, and I'll make that happen for you. Don't forget to subscribe too. We're pushing for 16,000, and the more fans we bring in, the bigger our community gets, which means more coverage, more breakdowns, and more voices just like yours. Now that we've broken down the key injuries and the standout performances, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. Because yes, a win is a win, but it's hard to ignore some of the patterns we've already seen in this Cowboys season. This team is playing to the level of its competition, and that's dangerous. Against the Eagles, Dallas looked sharp, locked in, and competitive in a game most people thought they'd lose. Then you turn around against a struggling Giants team, and suddenly the Cowboys are the ones looking sloppy, racking up over 100 yards in penalties and giving away opportunities. That's not sustainable. You can't be a serious contender in the NFL if you're constantly letting the other team hang around because of self-inflicted mistakes. Defensively, the story was the same. The pass rush got pressure, but the secondary was a liability. Giving up a 48-yard touchdown with under a minute to go should never happen. Those are the lapses that cost you playoff games down the line. And offensively, Dak and company did just enough, but there were too many moments where drives stalled, penalties killed, momentum or timing looked off. It wasn't a disaster, but it wasn't crisp either. The truth is, the Cowboys are lucky. Brandon Aubrey was automatic, because without him, we're talking about a very different post-game conversation right now. But here's the positive side. These are correctable mistakes. Cleaning up penalties is about discipline, focus, and accountability. Shoring up the secondary comes down to communication and sticking to fundamentals. And offensively, you've seen glimpses of how good this unit can be when everyone's locked in. If the Cowboys can put it all together, they've got the talent to compete with anyone. That's the encouraging part. But it has to happen soon, because the schedule isn't going to get easier. So here's my challenge for you. Drop your one-word summary of this Cowboys win in the comments. Was it relief? Was it sloppy? Was it resilient? Let me know, because I want to see how fans are feeling right now. And while you're at it, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. We're aiming for 16,000 subscribers, and every single one of you who joins helps build this community into the biggest and best Cowboys fan base on YouTube. The road ahead is going to test this team. Injuries, inconsistency, and discipline are all hurdles they'll need to overcome. But with the right adjustments, Dallas can turn wins like this, ugly as they may be, into building blocks for something bigger. Stick with me here on Cowboys News TV, and together we'll ride every high and fight through every low of this season.